And actually, Cube had a good game on that Gwen, despite the game being killless. It felt like Cube was still quite stable. That's not something you really want to play into Renekton, though.
No, definitely isn't, as that just gets locked in straight away. Further to your point, priority picks on this patch, I don't actually think I know anymore, because LPL started and different teams are just like, man, this is worth first picking, straight off the bat.
But with a Renekton locked in, that assumes that you want to remove the ability to play something which can be stable in the early game, because Renekton is such a lane bully. It can be flexed into mid lane as well. We've seen a lot of mid lane Renekton over the various last years. With that Jax locked in, I think that might be quite high value. In fact, get that Renekton out of that Jax lane. Jax has been banned away an awful lot, I believe, in that first day, with the changes coming through as that champion. I think you want to pick something that can maybe survive or deal with that Jax a little better than the Renekton can.
Ooh, but I do like this, though. Nymeara, we saw this banned away in the first game. Looks like LGD did the homework, but were willing to let it through for game number 2. And look at the melee matchup you have top.
That's a nice one. That's the just saying, look, Cube, no, we didn't get any kills in that first game, but that Gwen was still probably the bright spark if there was one to have. We're back to Renekton Nidalee, though, on the other side. So, two great jungle solo laner combos. That Renekton and Nidalee, tale as old as time. On the other side, the melee synergy, as you were already talking to in that Jax and Sejuani. I'm really looking forward to that scrap.
And it's hilarious that he's going up against Leyan with it as well. Leyan is that type of jungler who would pull this out constantly. One of the most played Nidalee junglers in the league as well. So Meteor's got something to show after his glorious game 1 on Lysana, but now we have to kind of cement where the direction goes for the rest of this comp. They're banning away the Draven, the strong lane is coming through, the Donger on the other side taken away by RA. Because RA right now don't have a bottom lane built up.
No, we are going to see that Heimerdinger taken away, so that is less ability to push in very early. Maybe that does give Sssum and Southwind a little bit easier time to play through early game. Didn't really get to do that in that first game, although against a Varus, early game is not exactly the easiest thing to come by anyway. So a couple of aggressive AD carries taken away from Sssum, already talking about that bot lane, but maybe they can get themselves a better support matchup to support themselves in their own 2v2 endeavors.
So Insight, the Neela ban, very targeted towards Sssum. That was the pick that he beat RNG on at the end of the split. And Neela, we know, still hovers around, maybe not the same priority, but definitely a pocket that
it is really niche. That you have to be a player of the champion to make it work, and obviously the target ban makes a lot of sense with that in mind.
Yeah, I think honestly as well, with how we're looking at the comp, would have been a perfect little addition is, hey, hold the phone. Aatrox gets logged in. As you said, this Renekton was looking like it was going mid anyway. It looks like they just confirmed it with LGD. Throwing the parcel over.
Okay, and they're leaving last pick support. Now, that was very important for LGD, as we said, in terms of denying Sssum and Southwind the ability to play through that laning phase. Zeri Lulu, great scaling, great ability to impact team fights later on, which is something that Sssum couldn't do in that first game. That's a good change, but they're going to have to play against something like a Varus alongside something that can help push, help poke out, and Lulu can struggle into other enchanters too. They might have to deal with some turbulence in the early game before it's smooth sailing afterwards.
I just love that it was being hovered. There's a wrath that will unfortunately not be locked in, but JinJiao with the smile tells you everything. They're definitely thinking about it, so I feel like there's very different identities here, Nymeara. I start with RA because if this goes long, I am very scared for this comp going up against LGD.
Yeah, I think if it goes longer, you've got a Jax who can start running through side lanes. You've got that Ryze, which you already know does a lot of damage. You've got that Zeri, which is one of the premier carries. But they got to get that through a AP jungle, which is twinned up with 2 CC AD fighter solo laners. That is complete gold standard for Nidalee. And that 2v2 bot lane, that Varus Karma, very little else in the game in that last game. If you come ahead with a win, especially if it was a clean 2-0, not only is it a good way to start the season, but it will weigh fairly heavily later on into that season. You start seeing what happens in a kind of difference in levels of play between these two teams coming from that 4-12 split.
Well, welcome back to Summoner's Rift. Can they even up the board? Can they get themselves a head start? LGD going for an invade in the bottom side that doesn't work out, and it's just going to be a quick back away. I believe they were spotted by a ward. Haichao was able to pick that up, so picks up first CS of the game, and they'll just go back to their respective lanes, while RA able to get some vision on Meteor's top side of the jungle, and Nymeara, I want to ask you about pathing here for Meteor and what he sets himself up for, because we know the Renekton's mid. We know that's always a beautiful combo, but you also have an Aatrox up in the top lane, so it feels like either.
I think that in the top side, you just need to be very aware of where Leyan is on the map, because if Sejuani turns up into one of these ganks, things get turned around very, very quickly. Maybe you can flash forward for a counter-strike, combo that into another stun from the Sejuani coming through. And that's going to be very important to track in terms of if Meteor chooses to turn up to a place first, has he been spotted heading? That's the most important fact for me in terms of the pathing, actually, is how Leyan responds to the Nidalee in their first couple of ganks where they can be so powerful.
And he will be, because those Krugs were well watered out. Ping's already going down from RA, so they know that this is going to be a topside path, moving through some of those lanes. But I also wanted to talk back what you mentioned, rather, in the end of Champs League. You said these are winning lanes here for LGD, and already you're starting out with bot side with a massive push, getting level 2. Mid already shoving into Strive. And top side as well, we haven't had a look, but Xiaoxu waiting for the wave to bounce back in, but we know what Aatrox does in the early stage versus most of the Jaxes anyway. However, hitting level 2 always makes a bit of a difference as Cube starts whacking him and both move to half HP.
Yeah, I know there's been some differences in terms of runes taken by Jax in various matchups over the last season. Against Aatrox, you take lethal tempo, you hop on his face and you say, all right, okay, I'm going to stack up lethal tempo and I'll just win any extended trade after that point. You see what happens as soon as you kind of hop past that first Q. The Aatrox needs to be very careful with how they use that Umbral Dash to at least try and buy themselves a way to get away from a couple of autos from the Jax after the Leap Strike's used.
Just watching Sssum at the bottom lane leak his own way out of that strike over the wall, maybe unintentionally, as this could be a dive. Now, level 3, even against an Aatrox, maybe Leyan. Yeah, okay, good. Smart thinking, I think there, Nymeara. Aatrox is not the easiest person to die.
No, you get 2-man Q. Probably end of that threat at that point, but they were looking for it. That is information getting over to LGD in terms of where Leyan is on the map, but not like the Meteor can really capitalize right now. I didn't expect a bot lane dive from this, but huge wave control from this Varus Karma allows them the option to pull the Renekton there as well, but tower shots!
The assumed dodge as well was beautiful, but you're right, LPC took a heavy chunk just facing down the turret. What I was more impressed with, the Sssum dodged away from the spear straight away and survives an attempted dive. So both sides don't end up happening and teams just go back to normality.
Yeah, bit spooky. But Haichao able to use that early push in, get towards that bot side, but is not able to respond towards top side. Xiaoxu away from that turret.
Yeah, he's going to get the final knock up here on the Cube. Has to flash away, but the Arctic Assault, beautiful, waiting for the passive. It's a melee top laner, and that's why Sejuani is so easy to execute.
Maybe you can get away with it under tower, cannot do it in the long lane. Loses the flash, loses their life. First kill over to Rarab, first kill of the series.
It's good stuff here from RA, you're right. First one for the series. A much better start than the first game, as that first kill as well sets up the lane that you said would take over. Cube in a great position to kick off the game with the Vamp Scepter, now picked up off the first blood.
So, see what happens with this jungle top duo. We talked about the Nidalee combining with the AD solo lanes. Of course, have to re-mention that Sejuani with the melee synergy towards top as well. Quick as you'd like, gets that stun through that permafrost. Very important kill. Gets that kill onto that Jax. We know that Jax is a very scary champion nowadays as soon as they start getting leads in those individual matchups.
And look, Cube is going to be in a pretty good CS state as well. Just note that that massive wave getting pushed in means that he's going to be up by about 5. However, talking CS leads, I think we need to mention Meteor. The level 4 Nidalee in enemy jungle invading right now, 36 to 26. And we know that Nidalee's farm like a storm, but we also need to mention that Meteor is going to be taken over the game. That's his intention, is bottom lane. And tempted engage, Leyan hovering in the wings.
Yeah, it's definitely good to bring up that Nidalee advantage, but the thing about Nidalee, the later we've kind of got into League of Legends, is he's got to start impacting these lanes. Meteor trying to do that now, but we're at Strive not making that easy for them. Leyan, again, responding to these ganks, something that we also called out as very important early into that game. Nidalee not been given an ability to actually get one of their lanes ahead yet, which is where that champion really wants to start the game off.
Maybe level 6 changes things. Xiaoxu will be there soon, but Haichao's just hit the Dominus. Chains of Corruption as well there, Nymeara. Down in the bottom lane will be coming shortly, and with the poke damage we've already started seeing out, The CC to add to that lane could be huge, but maybe it's not even about LGD, is it? It's about RA hitting top over and over and setting up Cube, which they're doing so beautifully. Look at the wave he misses.
Meteor going to throw out a spear. Shows up here too. Oh, that's a pretty ill-timed recall, but LGD not aware of it. Don't commit to the play.
Okay, so they just back away in the end, but at least it enables Xiaoxu to get towards that wave, as that was so much to miss out and would have been an absolute disaster. Still picking up the most of it, won't push him over to Cube's 48, but he'll be close enough as if he were going to miss it. Now look in the bottom lane, you can see the poke coming through. We were just talking about getting forced out of lane. I think LPC and JinJiao have just done that to Sssum and Southwind, with Sssum only staying behind.
That's kind of the nature of this lane. Kind of expect that 2v2 to be very difficult to play through in the early game, but they're at not wanting to give up this bot side jungle.
No, they're going for the full invade now. The full fight. Stripe has to flash away immediately, but look at the burst damage. A good stun though from Cube, who's already pulled the Master at Arms, and you look at this new Jax. He's so tanky. Flashes away though as LPC moves up and makes a threat. But you gotta love the new ultimate. Now a 2-0 Jax to show us how it's done.
And that is why they didn't want to give up that bot side jungle. Their top laner was on the right side of the map to commit to that play. Are going to get this wave shoved into this top lane turret though. Xiaoxu able to at least deny that can. A couple of minions take away a play too. But this kind of play, I saw this first and I'm like, you are still going into Renekton Nidalee. Even though you have a numbers advantage coming in, I felt like this was a bit of a risk. However, as we talked about Jax, the damage coming from that ult. It's no longer just the Grandmaster's Might where you just kind of get some resists and you get to kind of tank through things. You get a burst of damage just before that too. Uses that to great effect. And Cube does walk away with a scary amount of damage in tow.
Look how close he is to Blade of the Ruined King. 2-0 start here. Worth noting that Xiaoxu was able to catch back up and farm with the roam down, but that kill cannot be understated. A Cube for the setup for RA seems like what we were talking about last year as well, where Leyan had a big focus on this top side, and what I think is, you know, the strongest lane of RA. Despite their upgrade in the bottom lane, I'll call it, it's definitely still a massive, reliable member in Cube on this Jax.
Well, Jax going to be definitely a difficult presence to deal with in the side lanes, of course. If you try and send that Nidalee into that lane, you normally want to set up with the Renekton. That doesn't work, of course, through that counter-strike. You manage to get through that Ruthless Predator. No easy stun. The potential for Jax to run away with a 1v2, especially after you've hit a couple of those items as well. However, that's a side lane. Still got to be able to deal with these team fights at some point too. And when you do have the Varus who's been controlling the bot side of the map so far, LGD still have their own tools to at least try and take some of the grouped fights later in.
So let me ask you about now, though, because it's 9 minutes into the game. Not going to ask you about now. Hold the thought. You know, LPL asking you about anything is just a hopeless endeavor. And Southwind,
you can ask now, maybe?
Forward, yeah, not now, and definitely not now, because Strive is going to beef up with Haichao, but this is a Renekton, still the Rune Prison. Good, but he's got Merc threat, so note that Haichao will not be stuck in place for too long. My question I was going to ask you before we started beefing up was, is this enough tempo for LGD? We haven't seen too much from Meteor. We know as a Herald, but where would you like to see that placed to kind of build up the pace that LGD so desperately need?
I think at this point you have to start putting as much gold as you can into that Varus. Also because they are matching the Zeri, and that's something which I'm getting pretty scared for as well. Because the Zeri, even though we saw a lot of trades go poorly in the early game, and there was a lot of control for LGD, that's still a decent amount of CS. They're actually going mid instead, though, Spearlands.
Oh yeah, and that means it's dead end. Oh my lord. Well, there's Meteor's first impact in the lane, and I guess Nymeara answered itself as well.
Yeah, I don't know whether they want to commit the Herald to this. They're going to take down a couple of plates, but I don't know whether it's actually worth them going for it, because they can just stick in this lane still. They still have the kill threat. They didn't blow anything meaningful besides the Dominus for that. However, they are going to pull that Herald. Say, all right, more gold, let's go for it.
Second wave, and no one's nearby. The bottom lane might be pathing towards mid, but I mean, this turret's going to be at 3 plates. Make it 1, or at least close to. And Haichao's going to be set up for success. This lethality Renekton that's now broken 4 plates off the mid lane turret with the help of the push.
Good amount of gold, and as you mentioned, is going to be the lethality, probably the Prowler's Claw coming through. But the reason why I called maybe look towards a bot lane dive or something instead is because you're not really denying the Zeri. They are 5 CS behind. Maybe if you zone them off turret, threaten a dive with that Herald, and you could keep Sssum from really hitting breaking point at some point, in the same way that LPC did on the Zeri in that first game. All good. They got this Renekton into the game now, get that kill, get those plates in infantry too, but I'm still worried about the Zeri factor.
And I'm also worried that Dragon's just been picked up. You know, neutral objective still, you look at the power of Dragon's Soul in games, and the ability to stall a game out with this early Dragon that is just now taken is worth considering. So for RA, getting that objective in the small window after the pick on mid maybe makes the game feel a little bit more approachable as time goes on.
Okay, Meteor heading up towards their Krugs on the top side of the map, seeing resets coming in from jungle support from both sides, so watch where those vision lines come in a little bit further on into this game, the next minute or two. This has to happen after those resets come through. Meteor sweeping through that top side, maybe trying to pay attention to this Aatrox, who has been left on an island for most of this game so far.
He's going up against Blade of the Ruined King Jax, but remember, it's a Nidalee with Night Harvester just picked up as well. Good ward placed down as Haichao's gone missing off of vision as well. And Cube was smelling something fishy up in that top side with no wards left to speak of as well. So at least the play doesn't come through for his sake, but for Meteor, we're going to have to see what he does now with his fully completed item, and if he can find something towards mid,
is it
Haichao gets the stun down. It always is. I mean, the perfect lane for setup, but Strive is playing very cautious.
He has to.
I think,
that's the nature of the combo. You just have to, right? Because Prowler's Claw's built up as well, even more damage, even more gap close. Even though you have that flash, you have to expect that Nidalee is going to be in every bush that is left in Fog of War. But still, Strive manages to collect that wave and stays safe for now. Meteor, actually at a point now though, as he said, with that mythic item built up, that Night Harvester, even higher point of damage, LGD. Plenty of combos to play around with that gold put into that mid jungle.
Right now, LGD not giving any opportunities. Even the bottom lane safely pathing back down. That's a Sssum I'm talking about, with Leyan hovering over him. No one's giving any space to him whatsoever. Even through the top lane with the vision control, they're doing just fine. As Glacier Prison was thrown out in the bot. Meanwhile, Leyan not finding a target, but the flash actually burned by LPC.
It's blown. I thought that actually maybe the movement speed was good enough to get them out of that range, but not quite. Still, Renekton not able to get the kill in mid, but able to get the push in mid, which allows them for not the first time this game to come down towards this bot side, threaten this bot lane. We talked about the Zeri being shut out of the game, being important.
Oh.
Not able to do that again.
No, the chains of corruption in this series have just not hit the mark, and LPC, with that down, that mid jungle duo just leaves while Strive gets the push up towards mid. So again, another play negated. I think RA are very switched on this time, Nymeara, kind of reading LGD a lot better than they did in the last early game.
Yeah, and I think, you know, again, the problem with the drafts in the first game was where I really couldn't walk into Fog of War. They have a little bit more ability to do that now with someone like the Sejuani being able to tank up. Then LPC does get the back stop, but don't do anything more than that.
No, so just a bit of annoyance. Doesn't mean the wave is going to be shoved in here. Cannon wave, so it will take a little bit longer to sit down at the turret. So the next question is Dragon, because Herald's up in 5 seconds, and I'm not sure if we're going to be talking about that before the next neutral down in this bottom side, because minute 30 until that one. And Nymeara, I was going to ask you, is it worth mentioning Herald? Do you think we should just be looking towards Dragon? Because Dragon would be second for RA, and again, another stalling factor that I feel like they can play towards.
I think Herald is important in this game because we have no turrets down so far. As long as you're taking it, and I think if LGD were to somehow sneak it, of course that would give them the ability to break open this mid lane turret, something like that Renekton. On the other side, having a long lane anywhere on the map for Jax to run into is obviously very important for them. So while yes, Dragon stacking is important to keep on top of, when you have such an important split pusher on the map, opening up the map with so few towers taken, yeah, I think it's probably worth keeping an eye on.
Okay, well then I'll be looking there because vision control right now is going to LGD, and RA looks like they're willing to contest it with the push through mid, that they're trying to hold on to this mid turret for as long as possible. Leyan does go over the wall to LPC though, because he's got no summoners, but the chains of corruption are already up and available, playing with fire as the poke damage is super severe. Over the wall, Xiaoxu is dealing with now 3 people at once. As going on in, it's a great ult from Cube, and he doesn't die for it. The spear almost hitting Sssum on the back end as I'm surprised that RA got out of that one, and almost with a kill to boot.
All right, all eyes on Herald, fighting around that topside river. The health bar's in advantage for LGD, though maybe allow them to get finally towards this mid lane adder.
They don't have any minion waves, so that turret super tanky. The flash is already forced out. Someone take it down. And Xiaoxu is the one to do it. Now dodging away from the Q. Haichao would have been dead there with an overload. But they finally get that mid lane turret that they've been struggling for so long. However, it took a lot of resources to do it.
Yeah, and actually, just in that fight as well, tower took a little longer to fall than maybe LGD had planned on. A couple of tower shots coming through, as I said, very close to having a kill go down. Cube left alone in this top side. Again, seeing the impact which this Jax can have, not just in those side lanes or in a 1v1, but in these grouped up fights too. Gets into the thick of things, use that counter strike. That's only going to get worse as the game goes on. Dragon over to Rare as well. So while Herald hasn't fallen, that Dragon stacking starting in earnest.
Yeah, look, 2 dragons here for RA. Again, I want to highlight what you talked about. RA just have to get there with the comp. We all know what that means. And, you know, LGD, this Nidalee pick, has had a couple of good spears, but apart from that, they haven't really taken off Nymeara. It's only a 1,000 gold lead. The dragon stacking, obviously, we just talked about. Herald might be picked up here, but what more can you achieve? What can LGD do now with a game that has been turtling out quite nicely in pace for RA?
So, at this point, you know, if you get yourself that Herald, it allows you to make the next big power play as well. Of course, with such an ability to dive with point-and-click CC or something like the Chains of Corruption into that Nidalee, becomes more of a threat as well. So, maybe the ability to open up the map on their own terms. Take down one of these side lanes themselves. And Cube going low HP might be the start of that.
Yeah, pops the ulti. The spear connecting. No, Meteor playing the Leyan card as Meteor. Is he going to die?
Oh!
The heal! And JinJiao coming in clutch with the shield.
23 HP, I believe that counted down to, and that is
Yeah.
22 HP more than they needed. Meteor struggled in that, of course, struggled to kind of like get the ball rolling earlier on in this game in the very first couple of ganks, but has continued to impact again on this Nidalee and combine with the rest of the team.
Opening up the turret, giving a bit more gold to LGD. And that's something, right? Again, using the Herald to open the map, but not only that, finding the kill on the Cube. Kind of trying to get some gold back to LGD. And now we're getting somewhere in field. Leyan on the opposite side says, no, things are still happening for me, but JinJiao presses the ultimate, presses W, and the healing is amazing as LPC turns it back.
Prowlers!
Mid lane, Croc slicing through. That's what Steve Irwin warned us about, and Haichao picks up his second kill with his deadly force.
Yeah, that one is not crying any crocodile tears. He's making you cry instead. And Sssum goes down. This Zeri, who we were saying, yeah, you know, maybe they'll get to some point where they're going to do a lot of damage. Suddenly that conversation now is, okay, they're getting absolutely blown up in these fights and not able to peel backwards. LGD finding a couple of opportunistic kills around the map, and that's starting to look pretty good for them. That tempo, that word which we talked about a little bit earlier, starting to fall more and more in their favor.
Can't believe he survived.
Actually, serious credit to JinJiao. Saves them topside, ult W's in the mid lane, gets that calculation right there and survives for so long. That karma in the space of a minute had a heck of a lot of impact, more than a lot of people would assume with that. Then Haichao, of course, already talked about that Prowler's Claw, finishing off that kill wonderfully after JinJiao makes his own great escape.
And we need to pull out as well that he's got a Mikhail's Bell. He actually rushed that. So JinJiao right now, smurfing a little bit here and smurfing for his team. That Bell's going to come in so handy, especially since LPC doesn't have the cleanse available. The Bell, about 20 seconds left on the cooldown. And we have to remember that not only Baron's sitting there looking us in the face if one of these big team fights go awry, but Dragon will be coming up in a minute 40 and LGD need to get their hands on it. So some pretty good tools to be looking at there, Nymeara, as right now that vision setup seems to be the priority with them hovering off to the side of mid lane. Yeah,
I think it is right that you bring up those objectives as well, because I think you're going to struggle to dive inner turrets and start breaking the base as LGD unless you start getting towards a soul, getting towards a Baron and winning big fights.
Bell. That's the Bell. That's what we're talking about. On Leyan, he gets targeted out. The spear, though, hits Sssum and Meteor lands it perfectly. Now the chase continues with them trying to force up through mid. Sssum dodging away that arrow from LPC, but You can see LGD's poke, their burst continues on in this game to be a big threat to RA.
Okay, but how much do they get from this? Do they just get vision control around the Baron? I assume that's what they're going to get with these health bars, particularly on Leyan falling a little low, but LGD not actually getting the clean kill that time, not quite able to finish off that first target. That means that LGD once again kind of waiting to see when that next big fight will come through. They really need that to happen. This is the kind of comp which needs a big objective to finish off the game. As much as they've managed to find some victories for themselves in the last few minutes, need to stick the landing after this point.
We do have 2 items on Xiaoxu, just talking to the strength of LGD for this next upcoming objective. Blade of the Ruin King picked up from Haichao as well, so we've had Renekton's flourish between in the past year of things like the Iceborne second, or sorry, Frostfire if we're new age and 20 years old, but we're not. And go towards Sunfire, which now no longer
do you know
a
the
mythic.
Ornn upgrade? Do you know the Ornn upgrade item? That's a fun one. Rhyme
no,
Frost
I know.
Gauntlet. That's a good one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Get to
Okay,
replace
someone
her
knows
with
the
that
Ornn
ability.
upgrade. Yeah. Dude, all I know is Syzygy, which I think is...
Oh, that's a great one.
Gale Force? No. I'm not sure what it is. Wow, Realm Warp. Hang on. Hold the phone. Baron's going to be started. There is a control ward here, but the Realm Warp brought 4 people in. However, LGD here and Southwind is almost dead. This was a cheeky play, but LGD were right here at the right time.
Yeah, Rara bravely run away from that fight because you see that spear come in. He's noticed that your Lulu has 0 HP, blows the heal as well. That one spear completely resets that phase of play. That's just one spear.
And now all of a sudden you have full access to Dragon because there's a quick reset from RA, so at least the objective stacking has stopped here. LGD are going to finally pick up one of their own. And RA are going to have to reset. Vision was gained by LGD around this Baron pit as well. RA looks like they're not going to clear it for now, but they're just going to let Strive do his thing in the side lane after what was, I guess, a nice attempt.
Well, that is now a, that's Strive playing a 2-item Ryze. You've got the Seraphs and the Rod of Ages stacked up. That means you get the extra level from that 10 stacks of the Rod of Ages. And you also have 2 items on the Zeri. Wait until you hit that 3 items. Talked about in that last game. We're getting towards that point where, maybe next time these grouped up fights happen and a spear doesn't land, one of those players can really stop popping off.
Cleanse. You can't get LPC. It's either the belt, it's either cleanse, and every time Leyan gets happy to burn the summoner, but as it goes on, might be a bit of a pain. Xiaoxu in a 1v1 though, the flash over the wall. Cube does it again. He was a big solo kill leader last year, and he started off just right there with a 40-second death timer on Xiaoxu.
Hey, Jack's starting to get online as well. We talked about the carries on the other parts of the map. Lest we forget the character with 3 kills. All of the kills that Rare have had in this series. 0 kills in game 1. Cube picking up the pieces in this second game to become a threat away from the grouped up fights.
They were setting him up in the early game, Nymeara. They gave him so much time, and it's paying off in dividends here. That solo kill leads him to 3, leads him to pressure on the bot side, and as you can see, already starting towards his 3rd item. We'll see in a second, but that should be a pretty decent buy after getting that gold. And then Cube, as you mentioned in the early game, as you mentioned after draft, there's going to be a point where no one can match Cube, right? And he's getting pretty close towards that point here at the 24-minute mark.
It is going to be that the Frostfire Gauntlet picked up by Dax to be a little tankier in his own right. We've obviously seen that solo kill there, but the other 2 kills were from a bit more grouped. So that's incomplete. Nope, no resetting allowed. No resetting allowed.
I mean, LPC's been denied a reset a couple of times this game, but Leyan, I guess the cooldown is really not much to think of anyway at this point, so why not stop him, change tempo? That's okay. As with that ulti down, do LGD suddenly think they can try for Baron? Do they really have the damage? I don't think this is the quickest Baron I've ever seen.
I don't think you want to pin yourselves into the Baron pit when you have the likes of the Zeri running at you as well, particularly on red side. Kind of a weird way to think about it, but the geography of the map does not help you take Baron on red side because you're pinned against the wall. You have to run into your enemy to get out of the Baron pit. It's kind of awkward to do that at that point. So LGD lacking some actions, some options there to retreat from that objective. And they also don't have themselves the dragon stacking to have play on the side of the map, which maybe does favor them in terms of where the walls are positioned. So LGD struggling now, actually. to keep themselves ahead of this game. They were playing through that Renekton Nidalee in that mid game. That was great, cool, get that mid lane turret, get a couple of kills, but the cost of that is not getting someone like your Varus a little bit further ahead so you can have more control of that mid lane, have a bit more consistent damage from your AD carry. Maybe that would stop you from stalling out as heavily as you have right now.
Well, you're right the first time. Lacking action. Definitely feels like LGD in this second game as they tried just then. Dominus was popped by Haichao to find the pick as Javelin Toss again thrown out. Leyan just kiting away, dodging through all this poke. Ability after ability. And they walk away, finding themselves empty-handed with nothing but a 2k gold. Strive may have given something a wave here. Over the wall, Haichao following through. Another flash going to be forced out, but what can LGD do with it at this point in the game?
Well, I don't think you can really realistically start the Baron because there's a teleport there, there's an ult there.
And it's behind enemy lines as well. Meteor going to be tunneled in on this TP in response, but is it too late? Ssum with the lightning crash down is charging through. Cube is joined in as well. And Xiaoxu's up against the wall. You said it, Nymeara. This is not the place they want to be. And LGD are being picked apart. Their chance in this game diminishing. And RA just playing as cool as a cucumber to round this out to a possible game 3.
Yeah, how many people are actually going to die at the end of this? This somehow ended up being a 1-for-1 so far because Sssum went down early into the fight, but the Varus left alone at the end, taken down by the jungler. Goodbye. AD carries both down. Honestly, I thought that fight was going to go much worse for LGD than it actually ended up doing. It's still not a great fight. They still lose 2 kills, but it's not going to be Baron over to the side of Rare. It's not going to be game-ending kind of fight. It's bad, but it's not the last note.
Take us through this replay because, as you said, it looks so much worse for LGD as Leyan's value is just skyrocketing.
Yeah, because when you're playing something like the Sejuani strong front line, able to kind of pin people in position, again, it just funnels LGD into really difficult positions. LPC not actually getting a huge amount done. Managing to get some damage onto that front line. Luckily does finish off that Zeri with a opportunistic flash over the wall to escape too. Things could have gone much worse after that point, but LGD very struggling with their position in that fight because Rare forced them into a difficult place on the map.
And because of that fight, they lost the 3rd dragon, or at least the 4th in the game, but RA picking up their 3rd. Now on Soul Point, as the team with an Ocean Soul that is just going to flourish. When you have Zeri with an Enchanter, a Ryze, a Jax, Ocean Soul means some of that poke is just going to become absolutely useless, and kind of exciting to see this comeback from RA because it's been a clean game considering the first one. They didn't even pick up a kill, but they kind of lacked direction as well.
What's kind of fun as well is, you know, we saw Meteor, Skarner first game, kind of being unkillable, being a real menace, able to walk up and shrug off a lot of damage. This Sejuani for Leyan now is going to do exactly the same, but on the opposite team. The Initiator, the tanky Initiator, making a real mess of things. When you have that Radiant Virtue, makes things pretty hard to die. If you die, Strive, not quite as survivable.
Oh, the boys. Guess what? Guess who's back? It isn't Slim Shady, but I don't know. It's friends of LGD. Haichao and Meteor now separated apart as the Realm Warp is only a fake to come back in. And Leyan will take the revenge kill. They tried on Strive, but he bought time. Now RA right where they want to be. See if they can pick up this Baron while the poke comes flying through the sky.
It's the ult from the Varus. Oh my word!
Okay, I guess the health scaling works out as Cube flashes on in. LGD do start with 1 as Cube gets knocked up. Hang on a minute. Maybe they don't need the Renekton as Sssum has to get over the wall. LPC, now what else you got? Meteor almost dies, overthrew as Sssum has to dodge away from that Q. I don't know how, but I guess Varus WQ is still enough to blast the game wide open.
Yeah, it's poke Varus, baby. Hits that ult, that gives you that stack of that passive over time. Huge amount of damage, and LGD somehow find themselves in a passage of play, which leads them to a Baron. We talked about this composition needing one of these big objectives, and somehow they have found their way to one of them.
Somehow, you know, somehow after this play went south, LGD got return on their investment, Nymeara.
Yeah, because Ryze is tanky nowadays. I thought it would be enough to one-shot, but ends up surviving long enough for Leyan to be once again the really tanky frontline. This is a good first phase of the fight for Rare. At this point, you think, okay, this is pretty okay. But while we talked about LGD having struggle starting Baron, They are very okay at defending it. Spears, got those arrows coming in as well. LGD find themselves in a position where they can finally use some of that range, some of that poke. It works out well for them.
Actually, Meteor, I mean, Meteor did the most damage alongside Haichao there, but that's counting in the fact that they hit Strive for quite a lot. But the combination perfect. Spears not missing as much as they did in the early game, and Meteor still having a massive impact. Now with the Void Staff too, and that's gotta help. While we look at LGD with the Baron buff, with the gold lead once again in this game, they're facing down a Dragon Soul in a minute 40, but can they get a pick that would put them into a place of almost unthinkable contention in a game that shouldn't be theirs at all?
Ooh, good damage from Zeri. Oh, okay.
Cleanse does come out again. Chain's Corruption flashed away from LBC. JinJiao gets bursted down by Cube. The Jack's also a big problem as Xiaoxu trying to do what he can. Meteor, the spear from downtown almost kills him. Xiaoxu's still going to die here as LBC is not landing that arrow onto Strive with a sidestep and a walk away. RA remain intact with 5 people. Look at Meteor and remember that this Nidalee means business. As I think Yankos from EU might be watching and thinking, okay, maybe this is what I need to do. No shade away as he actually gets caught out and hang on, that doesn't look like Yankos. He wouldn't be caught out with his pants down in that situation. Now it's to flash away.
Yeah, nearly bringing out the good old curse on that one, but Baron buff or no, LGD not able to push in these waves, not able to control the map. We talked about that being such a big moment, but Rare Adam holding their opponents to account, even though you see these arrows and these spears landing, doing decent amounts of damage. It's not an easy way to start chunking through these HP bars, and they're struggling to keep their own.
And this time around, LPC without the bell, without the cleanse, it was both on cooldown. And Leyan throwing these ultimates out like McDonald's fries is just the perfect way to get everything down, to find the perfect pick. 35 seconds on the Varus here, Nymeara. Mid's under threat, top's under threat, and that Dragon's coming up in 3 seconds.
Yeah, Varus is all of your wave clear. It's all of your anti-siege. The Cube, just when they find the advantage, picked off.
And now there's a Realm Warp, but it's in a 3 versus 2. Renekton zoning off the rest. Leyan and Strive still doing enough damage to take down the Karma support. But Renekton has now killed Sssum. There's no Zeri here. Rare Adam are playing with fire as Haichao gets the stun and the shutdown. You had a Dragon Soul to take, and you threw it all away. LGD have just been delivered. Just a free grocery run.
All of that was over a red buff. Cube wanted to take some enemy jungle camps, goes towards topside jungle, gets caught out, and LGD, they manage to capitalize. I don't know what the heck happened to Zeri on the backside of that fight, but it was, I saw a Renekton pop up and I'm like, okay, Lethality Renekton doing their job, managing to get on top of the key targets. But again, seemingly time after time, LGD find a way to miraculously find these fights.
For red buff. Cube died for red buff.
I don't know even where to start with this. This seemed like it was such a good position for Rare Atom, and Sssum tries to flash out, flashes over Renekton's character model, just flashes from auto range in one side of him to auto range in the other side, and a series of missteps, a series of mistakes in this key situation puts Rare Atom now into again, a more elongated state of this game. They should have had a soul. They probably shouldn't have given up that Baron earlier, but by their own play, let's be honest, they're giving LGD an extra lifeline in this game.
And Meteor's now like, okay, I'm feeling confident after that. The level 16 Nidalee has just bought Majai's. 10 stacks from the Dark Seal transferred over.
That is my favorite item in the game. I love this item.
Yeah.
It's such a I'm in your head kind of item, particularly when you build up in that early game and snowball it. But it also gives you movement speed when you hit those 10 stacks. It's your extra ability to maybe get in range for those stairs, just chase down for that execute. Meteor having a heck of a good game, of course, after that Skarner game in game 1, which was an MVP-worthy performance.
Look, game number 2, maybe not far off it with the way things have been going, but as you said, RA have given LGD this chance. Now, we're looking down the barrel of a 50-second Baron coming up. That Soul's still on the line for RA, but 2 Dragons now for LGD. They have a bit of sustain thanks to Ocean as Chains of Corruption come through. This ARAM fight is exactly what LGD are after, especially when Cube is not here as of yet. With that ultimate now down, LGD back away, and it might just be 30 seconds on that time at a Baron. we start talking about a fight again, Nymeara, with, I guess, 4 items pretty consistently across the board, or at least getting 2.
Yeah, but it's still in exactly the same location as we've seen so much of this game. This mid lane, the wave control here is so important, and you can kind of understand when you got a Renekton, or at least trying to play into this Ryze and the Realm Warp and trying to find their targets on these flanks. Trying to keep Rare pinned in the mid lane so they can't go out to those side lanes is very important for LGD. But does make for a slow old game. It does mean that
it does.
you try to play around these skill shots. It's not hard engage. It's not all of these solar flares coming in. Cleanse comes out and that disengages that too.
And a Realm Warp as well only brings the cannon minion to say happily doodly, but look at Cube smacking down. That lamp hurts like something else. RA are the ones to make the engage. They force summoners, a couple of good ones here with an ultimate attached. And now it's a question of if that's enough to start up this Baron.
Yeah, and as much as you got a Sejuani ultimate, all of the cleanses, the Mikhails, the cleanse on the Varus makes it so hard for you actually to hard engage. You sat here, you are just trying to win the skill shots, win the wave control, so you can actually move to an area of the map where you can maybe look for a better fight. This is getting quite slow at this point.
It is, but hey, look, at least you got your LPL fix, you know. If this ends in a 2-0, even if we go to a game 3, like, game 1 for you was not a nice enough introduction. At least Kitty got the back and forth nature of FPXWE, where both teams kind of showed us a lot of
Yeah, I see you got favorites already. Thanks for telling me.
Sorry, dude.
But, I mean, the good thing here is that at least it's slow enough that we get to talk so much. We get some ability to sit down to chat about some of these players, talk about some of these teams, and wait for the final big fights. They're not as often. It makes you appreciate them when they do happen.
That's true. And I mean, again, the nature of the comps being so different. Like, the fight for LGD over in a blink with the burst and the pick potential. RA, hard to kill though. And as we've seen so far, this spear's not going to connect. It's kind of by RA's merit and their mistakes that they have been losing some of these fights. So, again, can they lure in, clean this out in front of this Baron buff? Because they are starting now. Assumes the one to start kicking it off. But we need to get Xiaoxu in there.
Here quickly. There's no arrow of the wall threat just yet, but teleports come in contest.
But they're pulling off a Baron, so they are threatened. They don't know that the Varus isn't there, further to your point. And RA pull off the objective, and I guess we're going to ARAM for a bit longer until Dragon.
No, we've not done this one before, have we? 30 seconds till Dragon. Maybe that'll change the equation a little bit too, because you can solo that Dragon at least. You can send just Cube down to take it, maybe keep everyone in that mid lane. Might be enough to change things. Rare they've bided their time. Yes, some of that's through their own mistakes as well, elongating this game, but they have another shot soon enough to try and close things out, get themselves a big win in the objectives.
They might find a pick off here as Leyan gets the ult on Xiaoxu. Mikhail's bell once again, ding-donging on top of the top laner. And Strive gets a bit of poke in the process as well. Okay, this is why I think Howling Abyss should be a competitive map. As right now, Riot Games, if you're listening, please, ARAM ranked. That's how I'd finally get over gold as we go towards the Ocean Dragon. Still the sole point here for RA. Realm Warp though. Oh, let's go.
Oh, okay, they found the moment. The minute LGD leave mid lane, they go straight towards Baron.
Is it going to be down in time though? Because JinJiao has so much need for speed as Haichao flashes on in the Prowler's Claw, sends out a super on the Baron. It's taken by Rare Adam, but now with the flash out, Leyan wants to get out with the flash in. Cube goes and re-engages. It's a massive one. The Master at Arms finally has a real weapon as Cube chases down the remnants of LGD, and all it took was about 5 ARAMs, 40 minutes for RA to finally do what they should have done a while ago.
You know what it really took? It took LGD not ARAMing for like 10 seconds. They leave the mid lane. They try and go towards that Soul Dragon. The Realm Warp crushes them and will bring us to a game 3.
A game 3 after what can only be called loosely shenanigans from Rare Adam, but still deserve it with LGD being set back in a very specific comp that didn't find its specific windows. RA get their first game win of the split here. Take us to an all-important game number 3.
They had to really work for it. Partly through their own mistakes. Of course, you're allowed a couple of those when you're finding your feet, but still, a win is a win, and it does give Rare an ability to play through this third game. After that first game where they got 0 kills, that's a breath of fresh air for them.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you get to find out if RA or LGD are the better team. But let's be real, so far the comps have been pretty exciting. You know, game number 1 was a little bit slower around the edges. Game 2 started slowing down, but then RA, remember, they had the Realm Warp that, you know, we've seen so aggressively all game long. And you got to give props to Leyan in that game. Nymeara, I think the ult usage, like consistently off a cooldown. Let's take Cleanse. Let's take the Ding Dong Belt from JinJiao. Once those were down consistently, he throws out another one, and there you go. There's a nice pick for them to play with.
I mean, at least he was hitting his ult. Some of those chains of corruption weren't ending to really even the score with that one. That Sejuani was really the big difference maker in a lot of ways too, because of the ability to kind of like snowball through that top side. We saw that a little bit earlier on, and then be that really annoying, hard to kill frontliner in the late game was a huge impact for his team.
Yeah, and then again, we walk into what that late game was, where I think RA's decision-making has to be criticized a little bit around the red buff play that almost gave LGD a window back in. Like, LGD were, you know, kind of shut out of the game, only with 2,000 gold lead at the best of times. But I think RA were playing with fire a bit.
Yeah, Cube has had as far as things go, considering that the first game was so drastically poor in terms of the scoreboard, Cube actually had one game there. The second game was a real threat in those side lanes, and we saw that huge 4-man counter-strike to really end things off around that Baron at the end of things. Didn't come with its negatives. That red buff, of course, will sit in the memory of us for a little while. But Cube, I think going into this third game, it's definitely someone I'm watching to be played towards again.
Yeah, again, Cube has been the most solid member of Rare Adam. Like, you look at this RA top laner, and the reason he's still there, the reason that they play towards him is because he's actually quite consistent and he is a reliable force. I think Cube was one of the best top laners last year, just in the league in total. And it came off the back of Leyan and him developing really good synergy. And Nymeara, we saw there, they did the exact same thing as, I'm sorry, I'm also just noticing the gold graph having a big swing.
Whenever you have a Renekton Nidalee like combo in your team, you don't want that graph to stretch beyond 30 minutes, let's be honest. Yeah. The fact that it went so late, it's also a testament to how LGD kind of struggled to really get their combos rolling to a point where they could smash them out rather than just take a turret, just get like 1 or 2 kills. So while this was kind of extended by no small part to Rare, not quite landing knockout punches, LGD, I think when they're going into third game, probably need to think about if we're playing snowbally comps, we need to be much more clinical about the way we play through them. Have a bit more of that killer instinct.
Because this time around it was clinical